All right, it is 6:30 p.m. and we have a quorum. We're going to call this workshop of the Lewisville City Council to order. First up, we have discussion of the regular agenda items and consent agenda items. So, Council, if you have your packets handy. And if you do whisper or mumble stuff, it will be picked up by these microphones. They are impressive. All right. I've got, first off, invocation. Councilmember Green, I've got you with the flags. Apparently we have a pupper coming in, so looking forward to Council Canines. We'll see how that all goes. Is this how I'm going to get the bite suit? Is this how that's going to work? It's one option. Okay.
I won't pet that dog.
That cracks me up. Awesome. We also have a proclamation for Community Development Week. So we'll be presenting for that. Item E1, public hearing, consideration of an ordinance granting a zone change from GB to single-family residential. Public hearing number 2, consideration of an ordinance adopting youth rec program standards of care. This is our annual one that we have to do, boilerplate. Consent agenda, item 3, minutes. Item 4, signal construction for Windhaven and Cookie. We need to let Sesame Street know we have a street named Cookie, by the way.
You know, I never knew that. I never knew we had a street.
Item 5, professional services agreement with Bartlett and West. Item 6, waiving the penalty and interest on a property tax account.
Can you explain that in a bit more detail? Was it a mistake by DCAT on that? Is that what it was?
Yes. So in order to waive the penalty and interest, there has to be a valid reason, and it can't be the fault of the property owner. So in this case, it was DCAT. They had issues with sending the bill and the notice into the proper address. So in the backup, there's all the information there and the reasoning for it. And it's a process now that we have to take to approve it. And the school districts and the county will do that as well.
And it's just the penalty, so it's like $100 and something.
That's the total amount, and our portion is about $26 of that.
Okay.
Item 7, acceptance of the ACFR. Item 8, reports. Closed session, anything? Okay, nothing. Closed session. All right. No questions or comments on the agenda. We'll go ahead and move on to workshop session. Item B, review of the annual comprehensive financial report and popular annual financial report for fiscal year 2023. Dave Erb and John DeBurrow with Weaver and Tidwell presenting.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm happy to present the annual financial report and the popular annual financial report for fiscal year ended September 30th, 2023. This is a process that actually started before the end of the last fiscal year, just staff preparing materials for the auditors to review and then to conduct their field work. So basically it's about a 6-month process, so we're very excited to kind of put this to rest so that we can get into the current fiscal year that we're working in right now. There are some filing requirements by March 31st, so hence we're trying to get it all approved and then do our required filings. So before I turn it over to John to go over the presentation, I just want to make a couple comments first. We have some staff here I want to recognize. We have Dan Tompkins. You might recognize her from the other side of the hall in budget. She's come home to finance. We're very excited to have her as accounting manager. One thing I'll just tell you is she got thrown into this middle of audit. She started on January 3rd in finance. The auditors were here January 2nd. So it was baptism by fire. So leading up to that, Heather Pacho, who's our senior accountant, she carried a lot of that up until that point and even through the end. So we're very happy to have both of them here. Just wanted to recognize that. We have two other accountants that did significant work on the audit. We have Maricela Corona, she's another accountant, and Tulia Perry. And they both specialize in certain areas, and they all really contributed to this and carried the load. And so whatever I get to look good up here is because of all the work that they do. So thank you for that. I also want to recognize the help from other departments. Every year there's new pronouncements that we include in the audit, and this year it had to do with subscription-based IT agreements. And we were hounding Chris and his team for information to determine what kind of impacts it would have on our financials. So thanks for Chris and his team, and then HR also plays a big role in our completion of our audit, so I didn't want to forget those folks. At the place, I believe, at their place.
Oh, okay.
Is the popular annual financial report. This is going to be third or fourth year? Third. This is our third year, so this is something that we hadn't done in the past. This is a 20-page summary that provides a high-level information on our audit. And just for context, the full audit is about 200 pages. So where the audit, the full annual comprehensive financial report is intended for folks that are external to the organization, bond rating agencies, banks, those kind of things that make credit decisions on our behalf. They utilize that. State and federal agencies also use that. This is a little bit more of a user-friendly document, a little more concise, and provides real good high-level information about the activities over the last year. This was the last part of the Triple Crown, which is the recognition from the Government Finance Officers Association for our distinguished budget, for the annual comprehensive financial report, and now the PAFR. So with all these three documents, we are a Triple Crown winner, and it's a very small pool of folks in the whole nation that actually are recognized to have all three of these. So we're very excited to have this, and Heather's done a nice job with this over the last couple of years in pulling that together. That's all my general comments. I'm going to ask John to come up. He's got a presentation that he's going to make, very high level. After the presentation, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the audit, the single audits that are there, or the PAFR. So, thanks.
It's just swipes up.
Swipe up.
I'm not the biggest one on technology, so bear with me. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I appreciate you allowing me to meet with you this evening to present the results of the fiscal year 2023 audit. And I'd like to just take a moment to thank Dave, Deanne, Heather, and the rest of the finance staff for another great job on this year's audit. And I have a presentation to go over with you that goes through a number of things. It gives a little bit of an introduction to the audit process, talks about the audit results, which I'm sure you want to hear, and I'll give you a little tidbit that they are very good results. Talk about the audit process, some of our required communications, and I've got some financial highlight slides that go through some of the numbers from both this year's and last year's ACFR. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know. I apologize, Lauren Fudge, our audit manager, couldn't be with us this evening, but she was an integral part of our team, as were Greg Peterson, our technical reviewer, Michelle Gilly, who performed a lot of the day-to-day field work with Lauren and some of our other staff. Cut to the chase. The audit results are, we've issued 3 reports on the city's financial statement and single audit. The first is that we issued our independent auditor's report on the city's financial statements and issued what's known as an unmodified opinion. That means it's a clean opinion that we feel that the city's financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. The second report that we issued is in regard to the single audit, and it's called our Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control over Financial Reporting, Non-Compliance, and Other Matters. And in that report, there were no findings. So there were no instances of any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control, and no material compliance findings. And the third audit report that we've issued is our audit report on compliance for each major federal and state program. Basically, the city had to have a federal and a state single audit this year because of the dollar amount of both federal and state assistance that was spent this year. So we had to audit one major federal program and two state major programs. And I'm happy to report that there were no findings. So we felt that the city complied in all material respects in accordance with the compliance requirements of each of those major federal and state programs. And there were no instances of any internal control deficiencies in the controls or any of the compliance requirements. So good news all the way around. And it's a credit to Dave and the rest of the staff. Well, they're not good technology. I always throw this slide in just because it just kind of gives you an understanding of the audit process. It's not just something that happens over a week or two. We actually begin back in the late fall when we perform interim field work and we do our risk assessment on the different areas of the city. We perform our interim field work, which I'll go into a little bit in just a moment. We come back out in the winter to perform our final field work, and then we issued our report on the financial statements last week. And then in between now and next year, we're always available to Dave, Dean, Heather, and the rest of the staff to answer any questions, because a lot of times that's when they need the assistance, is when transactions actually happen. So we gladly help out at that point in time when they need help. As far as the audit process itself, we perform our audit in accordance with a lot of standards, generally accepted auditing standards, generally accepted government auditing standards, and what's known as the uniform guidance, which is what governs the federal single audit, and now the Texas grant management standards for the single audit over the state financial assistance. So there are a lot of standards going on. And we have to utilize what's known as a risk-based approach to our audit, because we can't audit all the transactions of the city. It would probably take us 5 years to look at every transaction of the city. So we try to look at areas more heavily that are more susceptible to material misstatement, and tailor our resources more heavily in those areas. Things such as revenue recognition and related receivables, federal and state grants, and the various compliance requirements, and then various accruals and payables. And I mentioned that we came out to perform interim field work in October, and this slide gives you kind of an appreciation of what we do at that point in time, because the books aren't completely closed yet, so we concentrate our efforts on looking at internal controls at that point in time. And we look at the significant transaction cycles like cash disbursements and payroll, cash receipts and such. And we walk through the process with the various employees to get an understanding of the process. We identify controls, and if we'd seen any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, we'd bring those up to management at that point in time, but thankfully we didn't. And then we actually take transactions and walk them through the controls that have been identified to make sure that they're actually in place and operating as designed. We perform tests of the city's compliance with various things such as the Public Funds Investment Act, and performed control testing over samples of cash disbursements and payroll transactions, and tested capital projects as well. And when we come back in the winter time, we use a variety of techniques such as vouching, sampling, and analytical procedures to perform tests of the various balances of the city and the activity for the fiscal year. We also evaluate the estimates, and then we did the brunt of our testing over the single audits at that point in time. And I think I mentioned the federal program. We had one federal program that we had to audit as a major program this year, and it was the ARPA money, also known as the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. That was about $2.7 million. And then there were two major state programs this year. One was the Corporate Drive project, which was a text dot agreement, and then the TIFMIS border support.
One quick question for you. Was it the dollar amount that triggered the for testing for the two-state
Can
programs?
you go back down?
Yeah, was it the dollar amount that triggered the testing?
Yes. There's a threshold if the expenditures on a federal program are over $750,000, then we have to go through a process of evaluating them. If it's at least $750,000, it's called a Type A program, and then we have to evaluate whether or not it's been audited at all in the last 3 years and look at other risk criteria to determine. But it sets the ball rolling because of the dollar amount. So there was, as you can see, the TIFMIS border support just barely made the cut. It was just over $750,000, so we had to pick up a second state single audit program. And this next section of the presentation goes through our required communications, and I won't go through all of this unless you have a question. But it goes through our responsibilities under the different types of standards that I mentioned earlier. The generally accepted auditing standards basically requiring us to provide an opinion on the city's financial statements based on our audit procedures. And I mentioned that we issued a clean opinion on the financial statements. Generally accepted government auditing standards require that we issue a written report on our consideration of the internal control of financial reporting compliance, and I mentioned that there were no findings there. And the final set of standards being the uniform guidance and Texas grant management standards for the single audit. And it's just basically outlining our responsibilities to perform test work to express an opinion on whether the city complied with the direct and material compliance requirements of each major program. There was one new standard this year that the city implemented, GASB 96, which I think Dave mentioned briefly, that has to do with SBITA, or subscription-based IT arrangements. And it was determined that the amount of the city's SBITA was not material to the financial statements. There was no indication of any fraud or illegal acts, no material weaknesses in internal controls. We look at things such as estimates and make sure that they're reasonable. We look at the underlying assumptions on each of the estimates, things such as allowances for doubtful accounts, OPEB and pension liabilities, and felt that they were all reasonable in relation to the financial status of the whole. We really encountered no difficulties conducting this year's audit, and as everybody was smiling this year. There was no annexations this year, so it made the audit a lot easier. Year after year.
It's on your phone.
Sorry.
And we're required to communicate to you whether there were any significant audit adjustments that had to be made to arrive at the numbers in the financial statements. I'm happy to report that there were no such adjustments, and there was only the one past adjustment that I mentioned for the SBITA. And I'd like to take a few minutes, as I mentioned, going through some financial highlights. And again, these numbers come directly from both this year's and last year's financial statements. The first two slides talk about the city's governmental funds revenues, which totaled $203.9 million during fiscal year 2023. That was a $32.2 million increase over the previous year, and it was really the net effect of a few things going on. One was that there were increases in the line item property and other taxes of $7.2 million. There's some changes in the property tax revenues, both in the general fund and the debt service fund, somewhat offsetting each other. And then there was the new TIF property tax revenue that came in this year. One of the big changes was investment income increasing by $20 million because of the changes in the market, which I've seen in a lot of places this year. So that was a significant change from last year. Intergovernmental revenue increasing by $8.1 million. Some of that was federal money and some of it was state, some for the corporate drive project that I mentioned with the state single audit. Some of it was the coronavirus state and fiscal recovery money, and then a decrease in other income. And here you can actually see the side-by-side comparisons of each of the various revenue sources. You can see, for instance, the property and other taxes increasing by $7.2 million. You can see the investment income going from a loss last year of $7.9 million to $12.1 million this year.
So I do have a quick observation on that one.
Sure.
Make sure I'm looking at this right.
Let me go back. Swoop.
There you go. So although it's $18 million increase in property and other taxes, percentage-wise is like 5%, right? If you look at last year to this year. The biggest percentage increase was the investment income of like 70%. Is that accurate? Is that
I'm sorry, what was 7%?
Decrease in the
investment
income.
Yeah, so it went from a -8 to a +12, so that's like a 75% increase. So that's where the bulk of, percentage-wise, where the bulk of our increase has been, not property tax, not sales tax. Am I not talking loud enough? Am I not explaining this? I do mumble
So
sometimes.
we had the $20 million increase in investment income, and then the majority of the rest of the increase was the property tax.
I guess what I'm getting at is this isn't money taking percentage-wise from our citizens. This is the investment income where the bulk of it comes
Yeah.
from.
Yes.
Correct. So, like John said, there was, we pulled out the larger numbers, the changes from the previous year, and the largest is that $20 million flip from a loss of 7 to a gain of the 12, and that accounted for, I think, about 80% of the total increase over the previous year, and that's investment earnings that's made up of actual returns on the investments plus the change in the fair market value. So there's value to having good reserves in all of our funds because those are monies that we can generate as long as the market is good, that we can use towards the budget where we're not having to go out and increase, certain fees or that kind of thing. So that is the largest portion.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, and it's also, Patrick, just important to note I mean, I think you said it already, that's not just property tax, that includes sales tax, which has been increasing year over year as well.
Right, the property and other taxes includes sales tax, property tax, and utility franchise fees.
And business personal property? No.
Is that kind of,
That's part of the property tax, yes.
That's part of the property tax?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions so far? The next two slides give a similar breakdown of the governmental funds expenditures, which totaled $243.3 million this past year. That was a $48.1 million increase over the previous year. The majority of the increase was really the fact that capital outlay expenditures increased $37.1 million due to the timing of the projects. The biggest project was the public safety building this year, which I think was just shy of $30 million. Also, public safety expenditures increased $6.4 million. Most of that was salary, and culture, parks, and recreation increasing by $6.2 million. And again, you can see the side-by-side comparisons, the big increase from $48.7 million in the previous year to $85.8 for the capital outlay, the biggest driver of the increase.
Real quick, that big increase for capital outlay, that was mostly around the Tittle centers.
Yeah, Tittle McFadden accounted for $30 million of that. We also had two other areas. It was expenditures for Corporate Drive, and then we also saw an increase in the general infrastructure maintenance capital projects, and that's something I think council was very intentional about increasing those. So things like alleys, sidewalks, streetlights, those kind of things. All those saw an incremental increase from the previous year.
Any other questions? This slide looks at the city's governmental funds fund balance, which totaled $285.2 million as of September 30th. The majority of which sits in the capital projects fund right now, $211.9 million. Overall, the governmental funds fund balance increased by $34.6 million, and again, that was primarily due to the $50.6 million increase in the capital projects fund, and and that's against a 12.0 decrease in the general fund. Unassigned fund balance in the general fund was $46.1 million. It's like the bottom line after all the restrictions on fund balance. And that represents 45.3% of general fund expenditures, which was considered very healthy. And finally, this slide looks at the general fund budgetary comparison for fiscal year 2023, looking at the revenues and expenditures, both the original budget, the final budget, and then the actual activity. And overall, there was a favorable budgetary variance of $11.9 million, which is comprised of two things: revenues exceeding the budget by $3 million and expenditures being under budget by 8.6. And just a couple numbers to throw out that comprise the revenues exceeding the budget by $3 million. The majority of that was due to investment earnings being $2.3 million over budget, recreation being $1.7 million over budget, and charges for service being $900,000 under budget. Sorry. Expenditures were under budget due to intentional savings made throughout the departments.
We've only got about 3 minutes left.
Excuse me?
We've got about 3 minutes left.
3 minutes.
Oh, 3, I'm sorry. I'll talk fast. Finally, with the enterprise funds, net position increased by $20.7 million over last year. Operating revenues increased by $6.1 million, primarily due to increased consumption and utility fees, rates. Operating expenses increased by $3.5 million due to increases in water purchases. Net non-operating revenues increased by $8.7 million due to a similar situation with the investment income increasing by $9 million in this fund year to year. And capital contributions decreased by $4.2 million just due to the timing of developer contributions and impact fees. And I will try not to bore you with this. That's just more guidance. Just to keep Dave and Deanne and Heather.
So that ends our formal presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions. I think the bottom line is we had a good year. We saw balances grow. We were under budget in a number of areas. And just toot our horn a little bit today.
A great job. Appreciate Weaver always. You guys give a great review. We really appreciate all the information that comes out. And it's just, it's hard to wrap your head around the 20 departments, multiple millions of dollars, how that all gets generated, how that all gets spent, and being able to put that into a format that's easy to digest is greatly appreciated. And we're doing the right thing. So great job. Get the Triple Crown every year.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Any questions? All right, with that, we're going to adjourn from the work session, and we will start up in just a couple minutes. It is 7:01. We're going to call this regular session of the Lewisville City Council to order. We do have a quorum. If everyone please rise and join me in an invocation. And I would ask that everybody just take this moment to put some good thoughts and contemplation towards those in the war-torn parts of this world. We seem to be getting further and further to that side of the coin, and we need to bring it back. Amen.
Amen.
Councilmember Green?
Please join me for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I think we have a guest, so I probably need to go there because we need to meet this guest where she can be. Are you sure you don't want? You guys can go down. You can come on, this is Chelsea. Yeah, come on, visit. mean, we could put, oh, look at that. Look at that. There's an entryway. Do we have trumpets? We need trumpets. Look at her go. What a good pupper.
She's a good puppy.
Hey, sweets. Hey, sweets. What's up? Hey, Daisy. Hi, Daisy. Hello, my girl. You can kiss this. Yeah, she does.
I have 2 treats left.
How old, Amanda?
She's 6 years old.
Okay, so everybody,
She will jump up and give you a kiss. 'Cause
we
that's how
we
she
need to
likes
introduce Daisy. Daisy is one of our long-termers at the shelter, and as you can see, she is absolutely adorable. She's about 45 pounds and soft as butter. Did she sit? Oh,
She
got
does
too
it, but
much.
I have the treats. You
Yeah,
don't
there
have
we
the
go.
treats, Ronnie.
You gotta
don't
have
the
the treats.
You gotta have the
Look at
treats.
that.
She has
Stacy, I love Stacy.
Stacy, the
So
winner.
She obviously will counter surf if you're not careful. But she needs a home, folks. There she
Very
goes. Oh,
good,
very
good.
nice.
I know how to see it.
Very good.
All right. Well, folks, if you get a chance, come on out. She is out at the shelter, at the Jean Carey Animal Shelter. There are others as well. She's just the ambassador tonight, but please come on out. We have to get these folks homes, especially some of these bigger dogs. They tend to languish, and they don't do well at the shelter over time. She's actually been there quite a while and seems to be doing well, but we don't want her acclimated to a shelter. She needs to be acclimated to a home. So come on out, come to the shelter. I think we're even waiving fees on some of our larger dogs, if you're over 20 pounds. So come on out, take her for a test drive. I guarantee you're going to love her. So that's all I got. But Daisy, thanks for visiting us.
Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, no, thank you for the That's great. That's a great one.
All right. It's like, okay, where's our next
She
adventure?
needs you. She actually, look, she wanted, Stacy, here's your sign.
Yeah, it's time. It's time. Right?
Yes, okay.
That's what happens. It's you take them for a test drive. You take them home, park them in the garage. That's how that works. So she's such a sweetie. I hope she finds a home. And just so you guys know, there's a lot of shelter animals, I think, represented by folks in this room. So I think quite a few of us have brought some of these critters home. I know I've brought 2 of them home myself. So it's a great thing if you can take these critters instead of doing them from a breeder or trying to find some specialty. Just find somebody who loves you. I guarantee that these little mixed breeds that you find at the shelter are going to love you a lot more than something you paid a ton of money for and don't really have the right upbringing. So I appreciate it. All right, next up, I think we have our Community Development Week. Who's joining me for that one? Here we go. Awesome. So we have the week of April 1 through 5, 2024 has been designated as National Community Development Week by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program. Pronounce that 5 times fast. Whereas the CDBG program is celebrating 50 years of providing local governments with the resources required to meet the needs of persons in low and moderate income, and CDBG funds are used by thousands of neighborhood-based nonprofit organizations throughout the nation to address pressing neighborhood and human service needs, and whereas the CDBG program provides annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities to low and moderate income people, and whereas over the past 5 years, our community has received a total of $5,034,562, which was used to fund the following activities: the Salvation Army rehabilitation, land purchase for Glory Park, playground equipment for Glory Park, funding for nonprofit agencies to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19, funding to serve Lewisville residents by participating with 14 local nonprofit agencies, and upcoming activities including the Southwest Parkway Complete Streets Design, minor housing rehab project, and multifamily accessibility program. Therefore, I, T.J. Gilmore, Mayor of the City of Lewisville, and on behalf of the Lewisville City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of April 1 through 5, 2024 as Community Development Week in Lewisville, and urge all of our residents to join us in recognizing the program on its 50th anniversary.
Just wanted to say one quick thing. So CDBG is celebrating 50 years, where the City of Lewisville has been receiving CDBG for 27 of those years. So really excited to see what the next 20 years are with Lewisville and CDBG funds.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much. Mayor Gene Carey once told me that the CDBG board is the hardest working board in Lewisville. I served on that board, but I haven't served on all the others. It is a very hard working board, and they do amazing things for our residents. All right. Next up, item E, public hearing. Public hearing, consideration on ordinance granting a zone change from general business district to single-family residential 5,000 square foot lot R5 district on .285 acres legally described as Stewart Addition Block B, Lot 9, located at 106 Martin Street, as requested by Jonathan Kronman, the applicant, on behalf of Inez Aguirre, the property owner, 24011PZ. 106 Martin Street is currently zoned general business and contains a legal nonconforming residential home. The property owner is seeking to rezone the property to a single-family residential zoning district to subdivide the property and build an additional house on the western portion. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval 6-0 on the item on February 20th, 2024, and it's recommended that the City Council approve the ordinances set forth in the caption above. Richard Ludke, our Planning Director, is available for questions, and the public hearing on this item is now open. Council, any questions or comments? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. Public hearing is closed unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Wait for the Granicus to fire up.
Motion to approve the ordinances set forth in the caption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. City Attorney?
This is an ordinance of the Lewisville City Council amending the zoning ordinance by rezoning approximately 0.285 acres of land legally described as a portion of Lot 9, Block B, Stewart Addition, located at 106 Martin Street, from general business district zoning to single-family residential district zoning, correcting the official zoning map, preserving all other portions of the zoning ordinance, determining that the zoning amendment herein made promotes the health, safety, and general welfare of the city, providing for repeal or severability, a penalty, and an effective date, and declaring an emergency.
Council, if you please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 2, public hearing, consideration of an ordinance adopting youth recreational program standards of care in compliance with Texas Administrative Code TAC 745.1153. The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services regulates various child daycare operations under the Texas Human Resources Code 42.041B14 and DFPS Rules 40 TAC 745.115. 3, the camps and after-school programs operated by the City of Lewisville Parks and Recreation Department are exempt from these regulations, provided that the City Council annually adopt youth recreational program standards of care. The proposed standards are updated to ensure accuracy and consistency in the language used throughout the code, as well as including updates, staff titles, and responsibilities. It is recommended that the City Council approve the ordinances set forth in the caption above. Stacy Anaya, our Director of Parks and Recreation, is available for questions, and the public hearing is now open. If there are no questions or comments regarding this item, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. The public hearing is now closed. I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
Move to approve the ordinances set forth in the caption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. City Attorney?
This is an ordinance of the Lewisville City Code adopting standards of care for youth recreational programs and amending Article 6 Standards of Care for Youth Recreation Programs, Chapter 10 Parks and Recreation of the Lewisville City Code, providing for repeal or severability and an effective date and declaring an emergency.
Council, if you please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item F, Visitor Citizens Forum. Speakers must address their comments to the mayor rather than to individual council members or staff. Speakers should speak clearly and state their name and address prior to beginning their remarks. Speakers will be allowed 5 minutes for testimony. Speakers making personal, important, profane, or slanderous remarks may be removed from the meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, clapping, and similar demonstrations will not be permitted. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council is restricted from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Action can only be taken at a future meeting. I do have one e-comment for today, which was from Mr. Daniel Law in support of the Council Canines program, stating that he has great experiences from the shelter and is pretty sure that the animal shelter is one of the best in the Metroplex. Loves seeing us do these types of promotions and being able to waive the fees on the large dogs. Thank you, Mr. Law. Any other comments?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Item G, consent agenda. All of the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. For a citizen to request removal of an item, a speaker card or e-comment must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. City secretary, do we have any comments on?
No, sir.
All right. Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. Consent agenda is approved unanimously. Item H, reports. We're going to go ahead and start at the far end with Councilmember Kelly, so I don't forget him this time around.
No report, Mayor, but just a quick observation. I did go out there and visit the animal shelter on Saturday, and it was fantastic. I hadn't been out there before, or at least not for a while, and the staff was wonderful. The dogs were all great. A couple of cats out there as well needing homes. One bunny was also out there needing a home, but it's just fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to go out there, please visit, even just to look and just show some support for the animals out there. Thank you. Oh, and then we do accept donations out there as well, so if you're so inclined, bring some food, blankets, or whatever you see fit. Thank you.
Councilmember Green?
So I was going to actually say something similar. First of all, Daisy, so sweet. She is a great dog. Pit bulls make great pets. But anyway, I also think the shelter has, do we have a foster program? We do. So I actually don't know anything about our foster program. So maybe next time we can say something about that, because I do think that when these dogs are fostered, that it greatly increases their chances of getting adopted and staying in those homes, because sometimes they're just really stressed out being in a shelter environment, and just getting out into a home, they can settle down, they can reestablish some good habits, and it increases their chances of having a successful adoption. So maybe we can talk about that next time. Then there was, I know that we got rained out this weekend, but there was a lot of work done by city staff to get everything ready for the event, even though we had to call it. So I just wanted to thank city staff for everything that they did to get ready for that event. I was in Mexico, so I don't know, did we get part of that event? No, none of it happened. But I know the work was done beforehand. So thank you, staff. This isn't the first time we've been rained out. I know it's kind of a bummer, but we thank you anyway, and we appreciate you. That's all I had.
Councilmember Jones?
All right, so I had the pleasure this Sunday to represent the City Council at Westside Baptist Church, who celebrated their 40th anniversary. We had a proclamation from the city. They got one from the county as well, and from one of our U.S. senators. They were very appreciative. They're a great partner in our community, and I just want to recognize them for all that they do. That's all.
Councilmember Cade? I have no reports. Councilmember Meredith?
Yes, Mayor, some library activities for the week. Unlocking sales success, sales strategies for business owners, Wednesday, March 20th, 3 to 5:30 p.m. Registration is required at the Crawford Meeting Room. Let's talk about healthy relationships, Thursday, March 21st, 6:30 to 7:30. No registration required at the Bennett Program Room. And Bluey Party for children aged 3 to 6 with caregiver, Friday, March 22nd, 10 to 11 a.m. No ticket or registration is required at the Bennett Program Room.
Councilmember Troyer?
Excuse me. If I can talk, I will give some information about the Lewisville Grand Theater. We have some performances coming up. First of all, Elvis Rock and Remember, presented by Joseph Hall on March 22nd. Dear Edwina, presented by our Productions Theater Company, April 4th through the 6th, with 2 performances on the 6th. And as always, Friday night acoustic jam sessions, 6 to 9, presented by the Visual Art League of Lewisville. Then we have some activities going on. There's a neighborhood grant workshop presented by the City of Lewisville on March 19th. First Time Home Buyer 101 Lunch and Learn presented by the City of Lewisville and the Greater Lewisville Association of Realtors. That's on March 23rd. And Conversations with the Artists, What Were They Thinking? Presented by the Visual Art League of Lewisville on March 24th. And on March 29th, a Community Passover Seder Dinner presented by Covenant Fellowship Church. And there are 3 exhibitions going on. First of all, Lewisville Middle School exhibition presented by the LISD, going on from March 3rd through the 21st. Beauty and the Unexpected, presented by the Visual Art League of Lewisville, March 9th through the April 13th. And finally, Lewisville Elementary Schools East exhibition, presented by the LISD from March 27th through April 13th. That is all I have.
Thank you, sir. City Attorney? City Secretary?
No report, Mayor.
Anything in planning?
No report, Mayor.
Nothing in the needy? Nothing in streets? Nothing in parks? Nothing in the cool kids corner? I know we got a lake level report.
We absolutely have a lake report. We are at 100%. In fact, we're just a little bit above the conservation level. So,
Thank you, sir.
Public safety building's still going well. I'll send you guys another video flyover.
Awesome. More importantly, though, how is Valley and Civic Circle coming?
Actually, it's going well too. I mean, there's a lot. If you've been by there, it's
every day, Jim.
Yeah.
Every day.
It's construction. It's going to be busy for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. We know it's going to be a full year, and I've already seen them getting up underneath it. It's what I really appreciate is how quickly they put in the driveways for the businesses in that area. I know it's difficult, especially in my dry cleaner and my donut shop, but we put those in, and they're working overtime there. So appreciate it.
And if anybody sees anything that just doesn't look right, just holler.
Yeah, we'll do.
Please.
Anything? Chief, all good? City Manager?
Mayor, we're just excited to have retreat this week. So that'll be Friday starting at 8:30 and then Saturday, full day, Friday, half day Saturday, unless you guys talk a lot. And then maybe it'll be a full day on Saturday.
Okay, you just threw that on my shoulders, I see. I recommend anybody who is ever interested in being involved in the city or just want to know how a city operates. This meeting really sets the tone for the year, for the budget, for next year's budget. So being able to find out where we're going and what council thinks are the key issues as we move forward into the 2024-2025 budget year. You can't make this one up on video. You got to come by and pay attention to what's going on there because it's the big topic issues. And I really appreciate council because I know they put in a lot of the hard work and education leading up to these 2 days. So come on. This year it's here in Lewisville, so it's even easier to come out and be a part of it. We do not have anything for closed session, and I have no further announcements to be made, so as there is no further action to be taken on tonight's agenda, we are adjourned.